My husband's childhood sweetheart is gravely ill. She claims her only wish is to die in his arms, so she brazenly moved into the marital home my husband and I share. I confronted my husband about it, but he turned on me instead. She's half in the grave already. Why are you nitpicking? Can't you be more magnanimous? I let out a cold laugh. Half a month later, paparazzi caught me repeatedly entering and exiting the Montgomery's villa. My husband, eyes bloodshot, demanded an explanation. I parroted his words back at him. Why are you fussing over him? Can't you be more magnanimous? I returned home after a business trip, and the moment I opened the door, I saw my husband Gabriel, rarely cooking in the kitchen. Before I could speak, a striking flash of red on the sofa caught my eye. The woman heard the commotion at the entrance. Her gaze shifted from Gabriel and the kitchen to me. The second she saw me, she stood, walked over, and smiled, extending her hand. Hello, Sister Elena. I'm Leila, Gabriel's lifelong friend. Recognition dawned as I nodded and shook her hand. Hello. Please, sit. As I took a seat on the sofa, she seemed familiar somehow. So I studied her a moment longer. Then it hit me. I'd seen her before, at my wedding to Gabriel. She'd sat in the audience, face as pale as snow, eyes brimming with tears as she stared at Gabriel, looking utterly wronged. Before we could exchange more pleasantries, Gabriel emerged from the kitchen with 2 plates of mild dishes, setting them on the table. He didn't seem to notice I'd returned from my trip. He didn't glance at me or the woman on the sofa as he spoke. Leila, come eat. I made all your favorites light. Easy on the stomach. He turned with a smile, his gaze lingering on the woman beside me. Then, as an afterthought, he finally noticed me sitting there. Shock flickered in his eyes, as if he hadn't expected my early return. A hint of unease crossed his face. When did you get back? Why didn't you tell me? I waved my phone. I texted you this afternoon. He went back to the kitchen, grabbed an extra set of utensils, and replied dismissively. Did you? Must have missed it. Come eat. The woman beside me stood first and walked to the table. Before she could pull out a chair, Gabriel emerged from the kitchen, set down his bowl and chopsticks, and pulled it out for her. Watching their interplay, I sensed something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. At the table, the 2 bland dishes killed my appetite, but with a guest present, I forced down a couple of bites to avoid being rude. Something occurred to me, and I glanced around. I didn't see who I was looking for. A bad feeling creeped in. I turned to Gabriel. Gabriel, where's Luna? He was in the middle of serving Leila when he answered, irritation edging his voice. I fired her, I frowned, setting my chopsticks down gently. Why? Luna was a housekeeper I'd hired from an agency. She was hardworking, meticulous, polite yet respectful of boundaries, and a fantastic cook, especially with Sichuan dishes, which I loved. I'd spent no small amount of money and effort poaching her from her previous job. For Gabriel to fire her without rhyme or reason made my temper flare instantly. But Gabriel looked indifferent, his tone scornful and dismissive. She's just a maid. I can do as I please. Leila spoke up, feigning shyness. It is my fault. Sister Elena. I'm staying here long term, and having an outsider around felt awkward, so I asked. I cut her off before she could finish. Staying long term. What do you mean? She looked to Gabriel for help. He went to the living room, grabbed a medical report, and slapped it down in front of me. It read, Stage IV stomach cancer. Before I could read it properly, Leila clapped a hand over her mouth and rushed to the bathroom, looking utterly miserable. Gabriel grabbed a tissue, hurried after her, and rubbed her back gently. Standing beside her, his eyes soft with pity, he said, Now do you understand? Leila's dying of cancer. Her only wish is to die in my arms. We grew up together. I can't refuse her. That's when it dawned on me. Leila's goal was far more than just dying in Gabriel's arms. I picked up the report, scanning the jumble of numbers. So do you know this is real? Couldn't the report be faked? Even if she is dying, why does she have to die in your arms? Have you forgotten you're married? My bluntness nearly reduced Leila to tears. Sister Elena, how can you say that? Would I joke about my own life? Gabriel immediately pulled her into his arms, murmuring comforts. The unbridled pity in his eyes cut my heart to the core. He rounded on me, scowling. That's enough. She's practically on her deathbed. Why are you being so petty? Can't you just be kind? My blood ran cold. My husband was berating me for a stranger in our 2 years of marriage. I'd heard the whispers. Gabriel had a childhood sweetheart who'd been treated abroad for years. He doted on her more than anyone else. They shared cups, slept in the same bed, even owned matching clothes. My best friend Sophia warned me, that sweetheart's no innocent. Watch your back. I'd brushed it off. After all, Gabriel and I were married. Even if she was close to him, she'd never dare flaunt it in front of me. Today, I learned just how good she was at playing the victim. Watching their affection, I lost all desire to stay. I grabbed my car keys, my face cold, and headed for the door. Before I left, I heard Leila's soft voice, "Sister Elena's upset. You should go comfort her." "I'll be fine." Gabriel's reply was icy. Let her be. Who caught a less that bad temper of hers, throwing fits over nothing in the car? I called Luna. She answered quickly, and through her words, I could hear the tears she was struggling to hold back. I promised her, "As long as I'm here, no one in this house can fire you." I drove to my mother-in-law Cecilia's place, where dinner was just being served. She was shocked to see me with red-rimmed eyes, and hurried to pull me onto the sofa, asking gently, "Elena, what are you doing here? Back from your trip? Have you eaten? Your eyes are red. Did Gabriel hurt you?" Her concern broke the dam. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. She told the maid to set an extra place and asked the kitchen to make a spicy dish while we waited. She sat with me like a mother, patiently pressing for details. I told her everything and her comforting smile faded, replaced by a frown. She sat silent, brows knit with worry. I understood. What mother doesn't side with her son? It was only natural she'd avoid mediating, but I'd needed to unburden myself. She opened her mouth as if to say something, then shook her head, letting it drop. I was about to ask her opinion when the spicy dish arrived. We sat through dinner in silence, the meal tasting more bitter by the bite. I wondered if I'd said something wrong. Finally, as we finished, she spoke up. "Gabriel was wrong to fire Luna, but Elena, Leila and Gabriel grew up together. Her parents entrusted her to our family before they died. We can't abandon her. Honestly, I feel terrible for her. You know, your father-in-law spent years with her abroad for treatment. She'll only stay a while, just turn a blind eye. After all, she has only months left." Her words slowed my chewing. The spicy dish, once delicious, now tasted like ash. It hurt more than if she'd stayed silent. To be told to be magnanimous stung deeper than anything. I pressed my lips tight, disappointment tubbing into numbness. After a long pause, I forced a faint smile, trying to look less broken. "I see." Cecilia asked if I wanted to stay the night. I declined politely, then drove back to the marital home. All the lights on the first floor were off, except for the bedroom light our son. The second floor. A foreboding feeling washed over me. I didn't even change my shoes. I threw open the door and raced upstairs, needing to confirm my suspicions. The second I opened the bedroom door, Gabriel was reaching to turn off the light, his back to me. A wardrobe blocked most of the bed, but as I stepped forward, the view cleared. Before I reached the foot of the bed, a muffled female voice came from under the covers. "Why haven't you turned off the light yet?" Fury exploded in me. I grabbed my bag and hurled it at the bed. "Who the hell do you think you are, sleeping in my bed in my house?" The hard leather bag slammed into the mattress, spilling cosmetics everywhere. The person beneath let out a whimper, then emerged from the covers, hair disheveled, looking hurt and wrong. "Sister Elena, you hit my stomach." "It hurts." Gabriel didn't even scold me. First he flipped on the overhead light, threw back the covers, checked her over, then roared at me, "Are you insane? What if you'd hurt her? That's a human life." Blinded by rage, I grabbed whatever was within reach and hurled it at Leila. "Who gave you the right to sleep in my bed? Get the hell out." Gabriel saw I was out of control. He jumped out of bed, crossed the room in 3 strides, and slapped me hard across the face. "Shut up." The force made my ears ring. I stared at him in disbelief, tears spilling over. I tried to speak, but my throat felt clogged. No sound came out. Gabriel and I had dated since sophomore year, married a month after graduation. To say there was no love between us would be a lie, but that slap woke me up. He seemed to realize his impulsiveness, a flicker of guilt in his eyes. "Elena, He reached for my face, but I stepped back, avoiding his touch. "Her situation is special. I have to stay by her side," he said. "If something urgent happens in the middle of the night, I need to be there to notice right away. And there's nothing going on between us. By then, I'd stopped listening." His explanations felt more like aggressive defenses. only cutting deeper tensions mounting. A soft voice piped up. Sister Elena, it was May felt unwell before bed. So Gabriel arranged this. Blame me if you must. But my stomach hurts so much now, could you let Gabriel take me to the hospital first? Her warrant sounded like a request. But I had no real say. Whether I agreed or not, Gabriel would never leave Leela stranded sure enough. Before she finished speaking, Gabriel scooped her up in a panic. I'll take you to the hospital. When the chaos finally died down, a wave of loneliness and sorrow washed over me. I couldn't pinpoint when it started, but Gabriel had grown colder and colder, the boy who carried me to class every day. Even when he had no lectures. After I sprained my ankle seemed to have vanished numbly. I gathered the contents of my scattered bag. Inside was a pair of cufflinks. Custom made during my business trip, a gift I'd set aside for him. I'd never imagined things would end like this. Once I'd packed up, I sat in my car and lit a cigarette. Adrift may be the office. At least there, I could avoid this heartache. I was about to start the engine when Sophia called the second I answered. She all but shrieked. Did Gabriel cheat on you? Confused, I asked. How'd you know? I saw him at the hospital, carrying a woman. At first I thought it was you. But when I got closer, I realized I was wrong. She paused at my silence. Then added, do you want to stay with me for a few days? By the time I reached Sophia's place, it was late. My cheeks still throbbed and swollen. Gabriel hadn't held back with that slap between the travel fatigue and the night's fiasco. I was drained, craving nothing but sleep. My alarm woke me the next morning. Checking my phone, I saw it was time for work. But the thought of facing Gabriel at the office made my skin crawl. When I arrived, everyone stared at me with a mix of pity and sympathy. My confusion cleared during a tense meeting, where Leela sat in Gabriel's chair. An assistant started to fetch her a seat, but Gabriel stopped him. No need. Just a few words. Leela smiled bashfully, settling into Gabriel's usual SPO. They slammed a stack of documents on the table, scowling. The project proposals you submitted yesterday have basic flaws, no damage done yet, but from now on, Leela will take full charge of this project. Someone from my team objected, but Elena's been overseeing this for months. Gabriel let out a cold laugh. Turning to me, Elena, didn't you notice the flaws? If you did, why didn't you fix them? My silence, to him, was a silent surrender. In the end, the project I'd nurtured for 2 months slipped through my fingers. Just before the meeting ended, I smiled and asked, Leela, may I ask you something? Leela's smile turned smug. I've only been here half a month, so I'm not as experienced, but feel free to ask. Sister Elena, half a month. So Gabriel had snuck her into the company the day after I left, planning to ask for forgiveness later. I stood, looking down at her with undisguised contempt. I thought you were dying. Do you even have the time to see this project through? Leela's already pale face blanched instantly. Slap. Another sharp slap cracked across my cheek. Elena, you never learn, Gabriel said. His voice icy, as cutting as a rusted blade. The room fell silent. Everyone ducked their heads, scrambling to pack up and flee the scene. Just as tensions peaked, the conference room door burst open. Sophia stepped in front of me like a protective shield, glaring at Gabriel. That's enough. Remember who your wife is. Remember who helped you pull the company through its crisis. She called this gratitude. Her gaze shifted to Leela. Reeks of desperation. One might think she picked up a disease out there. Gabriel wouldn't dare lay a hand on Sophia. Leela fumed but hid it, tugging weakly at Gabriel's sleeve. Let us go. The door swung open again. A man with a bright, clean smile stood there. His eyes warm as he met mine. Sorry I'm late. Flight delay. He looked familiar, but I couldn't place him. My mind blanked. Sophia stepped aside, making room beside me. He took my wrist naturally. Didn't you want to try that new Sichuan restaurant downtown? Let's go. Gabriel's eyes hardened. He unconsciously dropped Leela's arm, glaring at the man with open hostility. Who are you? The man quirked a brow, smirking. Lucas. The name hit me like a thunderbolt, sending chills down my spine. Lucas. My college nightmare. No matter what I did, he'd outshine me. Grades. Scholarships. Every exam. I was always second best, yet I'd never seen his face. He'd skipped every award ceremony. After meeting Gabriel, I'd shifted focus to him, letting grades and rankings fade. I never thought I'd hear that name again. Least of all here. I left the company with Lucas and Sophia. Lucas drove, while Sophia and I chatted in the back. From their conversation, I learned Lucas was Sophia's full brother. Stunned, I stared at Sophia. But, Sophia smiled, catching my confusion. I take Mom's last name, he takes Dad's. We hadn't gone far when Gabriel called. Sophia snatched my phone, stabbing at the screen angrily. Childhood sweetheart. My ass. Cheating with a million excuses. That girl doesn't look sick, she's faking it. She hung up, and I shut off my phone. Where to now? I stayed at Sophia's for 2 weeks. My phone off the entire time. Lucas cooked daily without complaint, even stocking up on milk tea, snacks, and fruit. One day while gaming with Sophia, an email popped up. From a team member who tracked down my personal address. Reading it, I learned the company was in shambles. We'd been developing a high-end coffee chain. My team and I had crunched all the domestic and international data. Execution just needed precise, but Leela, incompetent as she was, had falsified the market research and jacked up the base price from $35 to $135 a cup. When challenged, she'd leaned on Gabriel to push it through. The project was bleeding money, becoming a joke in the industry. Hawthorne and Vaughn were linked by marriage. If I let this fester, Hawthorne's losses would hit my own interests. I turned my phone on after 3 days offline, answering Gabriel's call with a cold tone after kicking me off the project. What's your sweetheart done? Do you know how much money her mess is costing us? Gabriel snapped, roaring into the phone. Elena, get your ass to the hospital now. Your team's insubordination sent Leela to the ER. She's in a coma on the operating table. This is all your fault. He sounded deranged. I paused, then laughed bitterly, losing all desire to argue. Her dying has nothing to do with me. Would my presence cure her? Did I give her cancer? Suffering that much cheer? Maybe she should just give up treatment. I hung up, ignoring his ranting. My priority was shutting down that absurd project. At the office, my team was heading to HR with resignation letters. They swarmed me, venting about Leela's tyranny, arbitrary pay cuts, relentless nitpicking, targeted harassment. Only our team. No one else. The whole company saw it, except Gabriel, blind as he was. I called an emergency board meeting. Gabriel, complacent in his CEO seat, had forgotten how he climbed there. But I never expected him to skip it. He declined the secretary's video calls 3 times after the meeting. The secretary looked uneasy. Gabriel sent you a message. I opened it, unsurprised by his arrogance. Elena, I don't have time for your games. Apologize to Leela at the hospital or I won't hold back. I typed back, smiling. Haven't you heard? The board voted you out. No reply. He was probably calling around to confirm. I set my phone down, sinking into the chair, savoring the rush of vindication. It was surreal. Even his own mother had turned against him. The vote had been razor thin. Thank goodness Cecilia prioritized the company's reputation, otherwise I'd have lost everything. I didn't wait for Gabriel to confront me. Some truths didn't need words. If he'd realized his mistake sooner, things wouldn't have come to this. Next step, divorce. Walking out of the building, a sports car pulled up. The window rolled down, revealing Lucas's face. He took off his sunglasses, turned his head, and arched a brow at me. Get in. We just pulled up to Sophia's place, Lucas and I having barely unbuckled our seatbelts, when a car rear-ended Lucas's from behind. The impact sent me lurching forward. My head was about to slam into the dashboard when Lucas's hand shot up, cushioning the blow. The collision was brutal. Before I could recover, the driver of the other car stormed over, wrenched open my door, and dragged me out by the arm. Gabriel pinned me against the wall, his voice low and menacing. Do you have any idea your gossip's all over the tabloids? Have you forgotten you're married? Warring around with another man. Lucas got out, clearly intending to intervene. But I didn't want anyone else dragged into this mess. Some things I had to handle alone. After Lucas left, I tried to speak, but my gaze caught the hickey on Gabriel's neck. My mother-in-law's words echoed in my head. She's half in the grave. Why are you nitpicking? Can't you be more magnanimous? I paused, then parroted her tone. Why are you fussing over him? Can't you be more magnanimous? Gabriel's eyes narrowed. He suddenly reached out and grabbed my throat. Say that again. I'd seen this crazy side of him only once before. That night in sophomore year, I'd been harassed by a group of drunk middle-aged men on my way back to campus. I trembled so hard my legs felt weak. But they'd cornered me. Reeking of alcohol, they'd spewed obscenities, one even slinging an arm over my shoulder. Then Gabriel had appeared. Saving me. He'd taken on all of them alone, no match for their size. But he'd called the police first. By the time officers arrived, his face was bruised and bloodied. We'd sat side by side at the station while filing reports. His hand wrapped around mine. That was the night we'd gotten together now. The scar on his cheek had faded to near invisibility. Just like his feelings for me. Growing fainter each year. Back then, he'd protected me. Now, he was hurting me. A rapid phone ring cut through the tension. Gabriel was so close I could hear the voice on the other end. Gabriel. Why weren't you here when I woke up? My hand's bleeding so much. Leela's tone was tentative, laced with grievance. I'd expected Gabriel to rush to her side like always. But he hesitated. Hesitation, though, wasn't in action. When he brought me to Leela's hospital room, her expression shifted instantly. Then, in seconds, she was back to looking utterly wronged. Gabriel leaned over her bed, tucking the covers around her. What happened to your hand? Why's it bleeding? Leela held up her bandaged hand. I was hungry and tried to peel a fruit, but I'm so clumsy. I cut myself. She glanced at me subtly. Then pouted. It's your fault, really. You always peeled things for me. Spoiled me rotten. Now I can't do anything myself. Gabriel seemed to ignore her coquetry, checking his watch. I'll go get you something to eat. Leela nodded, gazing adoringly after him, unperturbed by my presence as his wife. Only when his figure had completely vanished did she finally lift her eyes to look at me. I sat on the couch, biting into a piece of fruit, not sparing her a single glance. After a while, she spoke up. Sister Elena, could you get me a glass of water? I knew it was a trap, but I walked right into it because I'd agreed to come to the hospital with Gabriel today for one reason. Divorce. I smiled. Of course. I bypassed the lightweight plastic cups by the water dispenser, choosing a thick glass one instead. She smiled and thanked me, taking the cup without drinking. Then, as footsteps echoed closer in the hallway, she steeled herself and splashed the water onto her own face. Screams erupted instantly. The glass shattered on the floor, shards flying everywhere. Leela writhed on the bed, howling in agony. The glass was so thick it insulated perfectly. She must have thought it only held steaming water. Hence her reckless move. I stood by, watching coldly. A smirk tugged at my lips as I watched her suffering. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? Comes around fast. Leela's face throbbed. But she kept up the act, pointing at me through her tears. My face. Sister Elena, I get it if you didn't want to get me water. But why pour hot water on me? Gabriel heard her screams, dropping the food he'd brought without a second thought to hit the nurse call button. He turned to me. Disbelief in his eyes. Did you do this? Why? Between Leela and me, he'd always chosen to believe her. No unwavering trust, only suspicion and anger. Leela hadn't fulfilled my obsession. Displeased that Gabriel only questioned me, glared venomous lies. The doctor treated her burns. I'm calling the police. Before they arrived, I made myself at home on the couch, flipping through TV channels until I found a trashy melodrama. Sofia and Lucas arrived with the officers. Leela's face would likely scar. Even though I'd taken pity and mixed in some cold water, she pointed at me, voice trembling as usual. She poured hot water on my face. Arrest her. I blinked innocently. I didn't. Tears spilled from her reddened eyes, soaking her fresh bandages. Prove it, then. We were alone in here. A girl's face is everything. Why would I scald myself? Her sobs were convincing. Even the police eyed me sternly. Everyone believed her except Sofia and Lucas. Even Gabriel. When she finished, the officer turned to me. Anything to say in your defense? I looked at Gabriel, smiling softly. Who do you believe, her or me? Gabriel frowned. His dark eyes unreadable. He glanced awkwardly between us, then said slowly, Elena. No girl would ruin her face for revenge. I lowered my gaze, realizing my endless tolerance had been a joke. Fine. Gabriel, let us get a divorce. Gabriel's voice dripped with resignation. This isn't the time for. Sophia cut him off, shoving my phone into my hand and glaring. You don't deserve to be Elena's husband. No basic trust? You're not even a tenth of my brother's worth. Disgraceful. I handed the phone to the officers. It has the whole thing on video. No lies, just facts. When I'd fetched the water, I'd video called Sophia and asked her to record. Tucking the phone in my coat pocket with the camera, it rained on Leela as she had no idea she was being filmed, still playing the victim for sympathy. The officers watched the footage, their professionalism barely masking their disgust for Leela. Infuriated that they sided with me, Leela snapped. What are you all doing? Arrest her. When the video was shown to her, her face flushed, then paled. Gabriel's expression was equally grim, no doubt shocked by how far his childhood sweetheart had fallen. He reached for my hand, but I stepped aside, dodging his gesture. Don't touch me. Just then, a doctor walked in, shaking his head at the medical chart in his hand. Chronic atrophic gastritis. How did this end up in the ER? Let alone a prolonged rescue. I noticed Leela ducking her head, her bandaged face still betraying her panic. Gabriel, sensing something was wrong, fixed a cold stare on her, addressing the doctor. Gastritis? It's stage IV stomach cancer. The doctor glanced at Gabriel, then at Lucas behind me. Lucas smirked. Elena mentioned your friend was seriously ill. Coincidentally, I know an expert in this field. Thought it might be a years-long misdiagnosis. So I asked him to take a look. I saw through their good cop, bad cop routine. If Gabriel hadn't needed the Vaughn family's support, they'd never have let him marry me. Deep down, they'd always seen Leela as their daughter-in-law. Which was why my father-in-law had spent years with her overseas for treatment. Gabriel had truly loved me once, but 2 years of marriage had dimmed that passion, turning us into strangers. Leela's illness was a lie cooked up by his parents to stoke Gabriel's guilt. If he'd asked for a divorce, they'd have pushed me to back down, knowing I hated conflict. A perfect plan. Except they'd underestimated me. I wasn't just some idle socialite coasting on the Vaughn name on the day of the divorce. Gabriel looked utterly defeated. Dull eyes, slouched posture, a shadow of his former self. His parents were with him. His father a rare sight. After all these years they exchanged a glance, then bowed their heads, guilt written on their faces. Elena, we're truly sorry. I didn't care about their apology. Scanning the area behind them, I was surprised not to see Leela. They noticed my gaze, hurrying to explain. Leela's abroad for psychological treatment. Their eyes held a flicker of hope, as if betting I might change my mind. I looked away, nodding at the line of couples waiting to divorce. The Hawthornes had long agreed to the split. Then I'd been too swamped with work to finalize it. Their team had rejected the property settlement repeatedly until I tracked down Gabriel at a bar. Drunk and brooding, he'd stumbled to a quiet corner, bottle in hand, and called his parents. Whatever he said, in the end, his reply came. He would leave with nothing. I still relented. After all, we'd once loved each other deeply. So I revised his terms from leaving with 0 assets to letting him keep 30 of our marital property. Before I left the bar, he stared into my eyes. The corners of his slightly reddened, and grabbed my wrist, as if unwilling to let go. Is there any chance for us? I shook my head firmly. I watched the light in his eyes dim, bit by bit, until it vanished entirely. He slumped back onto the couch. I see, I'm sorry. Gabriel would never now, but if only he'd chosen to trust me unwarvingly. Even once our ending could have been different. Stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, snow suddenly began to fall. Flakes landed on my shoulder, lingering for a fleeting second before melting away. Elena, over here. Lucas's voice called from behind. I turned, just in time to see Lucas running toward me.